right, so I'm Sophia. I'm the host. We've got Havana Nguyen here. She's our guest of honor. She has been to the OUX boot camp. She recently brought Lauren Stone on here through the OUX connection at Florence Healthcare. So definitely a grand member of the OUX community and longtime friend of mine. So I'll do a bigger introduction in a second. I didn't even rehearse an introduction. I don't think I need to do that. But just a few announcements. We've got, what do we have coming up? Oh yeah, I wrote a junction object article. Check that out on Medium. That's new. Cohort 5 just started. That's cool. And we're about to publish a new OUX podcast episode. It's being edited right now by our dear Luke Prater, CTO and podcast editor. And the title of that podcast episode is going to be, Is object-oriented UX just a useless rebrand of information architecture? The answer is no, but I will be tackling that question, which maybe some of you have heard. Maybe even if you're new to OUX, you're still thinking that, is this just information architecture with a little repackaging and a little like fun flair and fancy names? So I'm going to take that head on. I'm hoping that I'm not going to start a war on the internet with the lovely information architecture community. Hopefully I'm being very diplomatic in that conversation, but be ready to defend me on Twitter. If they come, they might come for me. So I'm actually like feeling a little like sweaty right now, just thinking about it. Oh, no. So anyway, going over in that episode, the philosophy behind object-oriented UX, how that differs, then sort of the philosophy on cognitive science and how people think in objects. Also the documentation that we have in object-oriented UX. Like, I don't think there's anything like an object map in the traditional IA world. And also process and how much ORCA gives you that end-to-end process, a 15 freaking step process. Where it just shows you, this is step 1. Here's how you go through the meat grinder. So that'll be coming out later today. All right. I want to open it up to the floor. Anybody else have any announcements, job openings that you want to fill with for somebody that knows object-oriented UX, or anything else you have going on that you want the community to know about?
Well, I know I'm the speaker, but I launched a podcast.
Let us know all about it.
It's called Make It Happen with Havana. It is a productivity podcast that doesn't just touch on UX, but it also touches on like mental health, career development, creativity, things like that. I just launched an episode on how to make friends as an adult. It's kind of funny how we are never taught how to make friends. So I'll drop the link in the chat over here. That's my plug.
Cool. That's going to be awesome. The other plug, tickets are on sale for UX Hustle Summit. We just announced Jared Spool is keynoting it. Vincent Braithwaite is also keynoting it. So like two amazing people that have a ton of knowledge in UX education. And the theme is future-proofing your career. Tickets are $197, I think, for a 2-day conference. It's actually more like 2 half days. So it's like really nice and manageable. So that is September 24th and September 25th. If you learn one thing that's going to help you future-proof your career, do you think it's going to be worth that $200? Probably. I'm doing a talk on how OUX can help you future-proof your career. Surprise, surprise. And it'll be all around OUX workshops and how it's like a get started quickly guide on a series of 3, not 1, but 3 simple workshops that you can run to make information architecture fun and collaborate with your developers and build databases yourself using Webflow. It's going to be awesome. So UX Hustle Summit, make sure to get your ticket, make sure to be there. Not only the networking is going to be great, the career panel, Havana is going to be on the career panel, right?
Yes, I was just going to say, like, oh, wait, I got another plug.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on the career panel on Saturday at 1 o'clock for UX Hustle. I'm also going to be doing a talk that same week at UX Healthcare. It's an online conference for the healthcare space, and that is Tuesday, September 21st. So, got a full calendar.
Oh my gosh. All right. Putting just for those that just joined, uxhustle.org, get your tickets. So the career path panel is going to be super interesting. So Charlie Murray Pranley is also going to be on there, who was our keynote last year and who is like an, awesome YouTuber. Ida, I'm going to force mute you. Who's unmuted? Mute police here. Make sure that you're muted if you're not already muted. Yes, and then Joe Natoli is going to be moderating that panel, who is my new favorite person on the planet. So Joe Natoli of Give Good UX. He is like the UX guy on Udemy. He's got 200,000 students on Udemy and has created amazing content. There's a little collaboration coming up between Sophia and Joe Natoli that is going to happen after the UX Hustle Summit. So that's exciting. Anyways, all right, let's get going here. Enough talk. Anybody else? A few more people have joined. Any other announcements for the community? Anybody hiring? Anybody looking? Oh, Kayla, y'all are hiring? You're on mute. You're still on mute. You're still on mute.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
I was just talking away. Yeah, we're hiring a senior, fully remote. It's an agency, but we do a lot of cool like healthcare, ed tech, other neat complex stuff. So we would love to have an OUXer. I dropped the link in the chat if anybody's interested.
Oh, amazing. Wonderful. Did you drop the link in the chat? I do see that link. Okay, wonderful. I'm going to copy and paste that link over, and I will also post that to the OUX forum too, so people can see it there.
Cool.
Awesome. If you're ever looking to hire somebody that has OUX skills, please come to me. One of my favorite things to do is match OUXers up with job openings for people that are like, I want an OUX person on this because we're dealing with some serious complexity here and we need that type of thinking. All right, cool. Let me introduce Havana. Where do I start? So I'll just start at the beginning. So Havana and I met at a coffee shop in Atlanta, Caribou Coffee, right there on the corner of Piedmont and 10th Street. She reached out to me for some mentoring, was just getting into UX design, and basically joined the Ladies That UX community as a participant, came regularly. We became friends. She came on when we needed a new organizer. Havana was the obvious person to bring on as an organizer for Ladies That UX. Havana, did we co-organize for 1 year or 2 years?
I don't remember. Maybe 2?
I think it was 2 because it was when Carolyn and you and I were organizers, and then Carolyn left and it was just the 2 of us. So 2 years we were co-organizers, and then I fully handed it off to Havana at the end of 2019, I believe.
Yep.
So Havana brought on 2 other amazing organizers. So she is doing amazing things with Ladies That UX, is just a dynamo. Also, Havana is probably one of the most dynamic creatives that I've ever met. So she's got a YouTube channel, now the podcast. She's also a very talented graphic artist doing character design for a comic book called a series of comic books, graphic novels called Kamikaze. They've had multiple successful Kickstarters, 2 successful Kickstarters, right? 3 successful Kickstarters. So that's a small team of about 4 people. And Havana is the character artist on that. So when's the animated?
Oh, the animation is coming, and it's coming to a film festival possibly this fall. So.
Oh my gosh. So just follow Havana everywhere. She's active on all the socials, and putting, good, meaningful, valuable content out there. So I'm really excited about the podcast because Havana and I definitely share the interest in UXing your life, bringing UX to productivity. So it's going to be a really cool podcast. That's making it happen with Havana. Or make it happen with Havana.
Yes.
All right. And so today, so the talk today is going to be loosely related to OOUX. The big connection here is that this is her article that she wrote on this is something that I recommended every time I go into ORCA discovery and object discovery. And when I'm talking about things that you can use for noun foraging. So stakeholder interviews, the current system, your competitive analysis, user interviews. I always recommend as like one of the main things is doing a customer support workshop as an input for your noun foraging. So it's a great like research hack, I almost want to say. It's just a great way in a short amount of time to get so much information from people that are really knowledgeable about your product. So I always recommend this article that she wrote. It goes back to the second episode of the UX Hustle podcast when I was hosting that. So Havana was my second interview on the back in like 2018 or something on my second podcast episode ever. And she was talking about what she did. And I kind of like nudged her to write the article. The article was great. And then she's since turned it into a talk and also sort of adapted it for our virtual world. So that's what we're going to hear today. So as you're listening, be thinking about how you could use this as an input to the noun foraging process and just as overall as a great part of your UX research process. All right.
Well, Sophia, I wish
all
I
you
could do all of my intros. That was fantastic. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Thank you so much for having me. That's not what I want. There we go. Let's go ahead and play. Sophia, give me a thumbs up once you see my, yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, hey everyone, thank you so much for joining this very special meetup with OOUX Happy Hour. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to run these customer support workshops for UX. And before I get into that, a little bit about me and who I am. I'm a senior UX designer, and I work at a startup that actually made the clinical trials for the COVID vaccine happen. And before my life in UX, I was a customer success rep or customer support rep for software. So I have quite a bit of experience in this world, which is why it just was like so obvious for me to put together this workshop. So if you work in UX, these problems probably feel very familiar. Are you working on a complex existing product or domain and you have very little time to sort through and learn everything? Maybe you don't even have direct access to users. Or maybe redesigns in the past have been met with resistance. And honestly, even if those aren't your problems, you don't know what you don't know. And it could take weeks of discovery, weeks of research to actually get all the information that you need in this industry, for this user, for the existing product. And so I came up with, I started putting together this workshop with customer support. You guys, I'm about to make all of you look like dang geniuses at work, okay? So this is truly like a cheat code for y'all. So first of all, what in the heck is a customer support UX workshop? So this is a workshop that involves the customer support team, and it basically extracts a lot of the deep usability and functional issues with an existing product. Typically, it's 2 hours in length with maybe like 8 or so customer support reps, and you're basically asking them to kind of submit insights and issues, like what are some of the support calls they get, what are some of the support tickets they get, and where in the product do people get stuck. This is also a great way to collect metrics, and it's basically a crowdsourced UX audit of the system. So why customer support? Why not direct users? Why not subject matter experts? Well, I would say that customer support reps, they are the first line of defense for all issues with the product. Think about it. If you have trouble creating an account on a system or downloading an export or whatever, you call the account manager, right? Especially for a B2B system. The customer support, when I worked in customer support, I knew every workaround, every hack, every blind spot, every pothole in the system, to the point where I would answer a customer call, and midway through, depending on which page they're stuck on, 80% of the time, I knew where they were stuck. And because customer support, we have to work with the product as it is. We don't have the power to redesign it. And then, of course, like, because of this, I think that they are so on the front lines that they are the most knowledgeable about the users and the customers in a way that sales, marketing, UX, product developers do not know. So they are truly a wealth of knowledge. So, okay, I'm bought in. How do you prepare for a customer support workshop? So who do we invite? Typically, I like to invite 4 to 8 participants. I find that if you do more than 8, then it gets a little unwieldy. I also recommend that you have one co-facilitator, and I will tell you why. I like to also mix up the roles. You don't want just 8 power users. You want a mix. You want power users, but also maybe some newer people who have joined the support team. And also understand how your customer support team is actually split up. Are they split up between implementations and account managers? How are old versus new customers handled? How do they divvy up big accounts? Is the support team split up by tiers? Like, what's actually the makeup of it? And depending on how the customer support team is made up, you want a little bit of each department. And this is just so you make sure you get a diverse range of input here. So it's typically 2 hours. And the thing is to keep in mind that these are people who need to be on the phones, who need to be by the email, just so they can respond to support tickets and problems very quickly. I've run this many times, maybe like 7 or 8 times. I've always gotten a little bit of pushback on scheduling because people don't want their support reps to be taken off. Because, by the way, this is how they measure their productivity, by how many support tickets you close. So if you have to break it into 2 sessions, that's fine. Or what you can do is you can have smaller sessions, so that you can always rotate who is in your workshop, so that you there's always someone on the lines and the email and stuff. So just keep that in mind. Also, I'd like to use Miro. You can really use any whiteboarding tool like Miro or what have you. And I like to basically capture screenshots of the existing product. Now, some of y'all might be working on very extensive products. I've had huge Miro boards before with the screens, but do your best to capture as many screens as you can. Group them in ways that would make sense for the customer support reps. You can do it by flow. You can do it by user type, whatever way makes sense to the customer success reps. And I'll show you my sample Miro board in a second, but do put together a Miro board. And basically, you also want to do pre-work. So what does that mean? That means communications leading up to the actual workshop. You want to build a very strong relationship with the customer support manager, because chances are they're probably kind of salty at you for taking away their support reps for a couple hours. So you want to have a good rapport with them, make them teach them a little bit about what you're trying to do, the purpose of it, why it benefits them. The customer support manager should be your cheerleader here. Also, one thing I would not recommend from direct experience is don't just blast the invite to a bunch of just random participants or random people on the support team, because you're never going to take priority over their support tickets. The support tickets is what pays the bills, right? So you want to go ahead and message them on Teams or Slack or whatever you use, and just kind of like just to have a one-on-one like DM with each of the participants. I like to just say, hey, I'm Havana. I'm going to be the facilitator for your for this workshop. The point of this workshop is to make sure we get all the usability issues and issues that customers complain about. We need your help. Like, make them feel like, hey, well, I mean, it's not just a feeling thing. I need your help. I need you to be a part of this. And so another thing you can do is you can also ask them, like, are there any concerns about the workshops? Do you understand what the workshop is? Hey, can you start like this week? Just pay attention to the support calls and the emails that you get this week. Also, nudge them to make a Miro account beforehand. You only have 2 hours. That's going to save a ton of time if people already can log in during the workshop. So, how to actually run the workshop. This is generally what my agenda looks like. So I do 5 minutes of intro, explain what we're doing, why we're here, why this is important. I also do 10 minutes for, or like about 5 more minutes for a Miro tutorial. I promise you, these people have never used anything like Miro before. So it's nice to just like show them how the stickies work, show them how you change its color, things like that. Then I follow that up with 10 minutes of instructions and rules. And so I'll tell them, you're about to see a bunch of screenshots of the existing product. I have not redesigned anything. I just want you to drop in stickies of where customers struggle the most. Where are the parts in the product that people get stuck on? What are the complaints? What are some of the workarounds you have to resort to? And also, what do customers love? What do you want us not to touch and redesign? And it's okay to have duplicate comments. Like, don't pay attention to anyone else's stickies. Just focus on you, right? We'll follow that up with 40 minutes of quiet commenting time. So literally, I shut the heck up and I let them just put in stickies for about 40 minutes, and then followed by 40-minute open discussion. So the commenting, like, during the commenting section, like, what am I, the facilitator, doing? So I like to start a timer on my phone just to keep keep it time boxed. I also like to play music. And the reason why, have you ever been part of a workshop where it's just dead silent for a long time and it's like you feel a little self-conscious? It just feels really awkward. It's hard to kind of like get your mind into it. I find that like looking up lo-fi mixes on YouTube, it's just a nice way. Like, people just, I don't know, people enjoy it. I've only had one person over the past 4 years that complained about the music, but most people like really enjoyed that. And it's just a nice way to like get people to ease in and like just be transparent and all that. Also, during this time, feel free to speak up. There was a workshop that I was doing where 10 minutes passed and no one put stickies down. And so I spoke up, hey, I noticed no one has put down stickies. We're already 25% a quarter in. Are you, is this confusing? Did I not make something clear? Like, what's going on? So speak up if you feel like you need to facilitate things. And I also like to give people a heads up, like, hey, we're halfway through. Let's move on to these other screens. Hey, we got 10 more minutes. Hey, we got 5 more minutes. All right, final minute, we'll wrap it up. Does anyone need any more time? Whatever. And then finally, during this time, tag comments for open discussion, and we'll get into that. So let's go ahead and jump into Miro. Okay, so if you go here, this is my sample board. I used Eventbrite as an example here. So this is how I would actually set up my Miro board. I have a little tutorial section over here where I can have people practice putting down their stickies. I like to also have everyone put their name down with whatever, but I like to color code by name. You'll see why that's really important. And then here are just some examples of what I'm expecting in the comments, just to kind of kickstart their brain a little bit. And then finally, here are all of the screens that I've screenshotted and put down here. And I've locked all of these. So make sure like you select them all, lock them so the participants can't move them around, and just have them drop in stickies. And again, you can explain the instructions. And here is where Havana goes into cooking show mode and shows a perfectly baked cake next to the bowl of dough. So here I have an example of what this might end up looking like. So let's see, we have 3 participants here and they're sprinkling all these notes. So during the commenting section, I'm not waiting for all the comments to be in there to tag them for discussion, because that's going to take way too much time. 40 minutes, come on. So as people are populating this, I will start reading them and I'll flag some for discussion. So I'll click on this, and you can flag it any way you want, but I like to use the emojis in Miro. You can use whatever is available in the program that you use. And so I'm flagging these for discussion. And as time runs out, let's say during the commenting, it's the end, people are all done. Now I can go in, all right, let's open this up for discussion. I can just jump to it. I don't have to wait and read through and cherry pick and curate. I already got it. So I can say, okay, I'm confused about this. Sometimes when the customer is set to be announced on location, the emails don't go out to the attendees. What does that mean? Who put red? Let's go over here. Oh, Shruti put red. And so then I can, hey, Shruti, can you explain a little bit more about this this comment you made? So that way, that participant starts telling like maybe, oh, well, sometimes we get calls, complaints about da-da-da. And the reason why I do open discussion is that maybe some of the other participants, oh, yeah, I just dealt with that problem last week. And so now you're getting like, you can get a better intuition for like how often this has happened, what's the impact of this problem. You can get more context. And then another one is, so let's say another example might be users need to customize fields in the CSV export. Oh, interesting. I would have never thought that was a big deal. So then I can go back and see that green is Raymond. Raymond, what do you mean about this? Raymond could tell me. And then Raymond might, this is kind of loosely based on a real example. Raymond might tell me, well, we don't have an integration with Salesforce, and to integrate with Salesforce, we have to upload a CSV, and we need very specific fields. You guys, light bulb, because now we can understand problems that don't just exist on the interface. We're seeing a bigger picture, like, oh, okay, well, people aren't just organizing events here. Some customers need integrations, and so now you're getting a much bigger picture of your users, like use cases and environment, and how the whole experience of this. And so this is really powerful because and I promise you're not going to get through every single thing for open discussion. But here's the beautiful part. The meeting might end. You still have all this information. This is all captured already. We didn't have to set up a part 2 of the workshop or anything like that. I have all of this. So if we want to go back to our keynote, oh, lost my spot. So during the open discussion, I like to spur a conversation with the group. Another thing is start with the newer people. Do not start with the power users. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you a tragic tale of a workshop gone terribly wrong. So I had done this workshop twice before. So I was feeling very confident. I'm like, yeah, I got this. Like, I don't need anyone telling me what to do. So my the company flew me out to an office in Arizona to do the same thing with their customer support reps. And I felt like I had a good rapport with the manager. I came out there, they flew me out, lodging and everything. I set up, and this was before pandemic times, okay? So I literally had like printed the screenshots and posted them out everywhere. I had real Post-it notes. Well, the manager sat down and like 5 other people beneath him sat down, like his customer support team. And he starts looking around. He's like crossing his arms. This is very different from the demeanor that I heard over the phone the week prior. He goes, what's the point of this? What are we here for? Like, oh, we're trying to find out, issues that you guys run into, that your customers run into with the systems, And he proceeds to tell me, like, the system's fine. It doesn't need any reworking. It doesn't need redesign. I don't understand what your job is here. Let me tell you how mortified I was when this guy just kept like starting to debate me. And for 30, 40 minutes, I was there defending my job to a bunch of people I didn't know. And it was mortifying. It was so frustrating. And, I only had a couple hours with them because they had to go back to the phones. And so as this guy is grilling me about my job, I'm looking at, okay, time is money, buddy. Like, I need to go on. But at this point, he had poisoned the well because he gave me a hard time. And then I tried to you know what? That's fine if that's your opinion. Let's get some other perspectives. I go to his team and they were all you could see them shrinking down and well, I guess he's right. I mean, I know how to use the system. Doesn't bother me, I guess. But here's the thing, I had just observed them for 3 hours in an in-field observation, and I saw that it was inefficient. So now I was frustrated, dang it, I know this is inefficient. Now you guys are telling me you don't need help. And so now I felt like a failure. It was terrible. It was so demoralizing. It was so frustrating. But the thing is, looking back, I know where I went wrong. Some of the tips that I recommend to you guys based on that experience is you've got to do the pre-work. I thought I was doing the pre-work with the manager because I gave him the agenda and everything, which is why I was a little surprised that he was giving me such a hard time, because he saw the agenda and he saw that there was an interactive piece. But I don't think I got full buy-in from him. I also didn't do the pre-work by introducing myself to his actual team, the individuals. This is why I say, even if it's just a Slack DM, message them, build that rapport or build name recognition early, just so people are more likely to be collaborative. Also, if your manager says, hey, by the way, just a heads up, this one participant, he can be a little difficult. So he's got very strong opinions. He's a power user. He's been here for 10 years. I was like, oh, okay. So now I'm going to give very special attention to this guy. I was like, hey, I heard that you have a wealth of knowledge and a lot of experience with customer complaints about the system. I would get a separate complaint dump from him. So the pre-work is to help prepare yourself and the team to make the actual workshop as smooth as possible. Also, know who your hippo is. And who here knows what hippo is? That is the highest paid person's opinion, because that person's opinion is going to color the rest of everything. So that guy who was giving me a hard time and all his reps started shrinking down and telling me there's no problem. Of course they did that. He's been here for 20 years. His other support reps, they don't want to question him. They don't want to go against him. This is their boss. So you have to be mindful of the power dynamics there. I like to tell people, the newer people, to go first, because that way they can go first, not color the hippo. And again, with the pre-work, you can tell the hippo, hey, do you mind if we go ahead and ask some of the newer people first, just so I can get a fresh perspective? It's also so that I can get information out of them before the hippo influences them. The other, so ask newer people. Also, I wish I had a co-facilitator. A co-facilitator could have been there not only to take notes as I facilitate, but they could have been there to help do some damage control with that guy. So if that guy was just not backing down, a co-facilitator might have been able to take them aside, hey, I just want to, you seem very skeptical. I want to know, we're open to feedback. Let me know, and have that conversation out the door, and I can keep the workshop going. So have a co-facilitator. I now never run any workshop without one. And then finally, have no more than 3 rules. This is going back to the rules and instructions for your participants at the beginning of the workshop. This is already going to be such a foreign exercise for them. You do not want to load them with a bunch of rules. Like, you don't want to create rules like, hey, we're not really looking for visual feedback. We're looking for functionality feedback. So just be mindful of that in the comments. No, as the UXer, as a facilitator, it's your job to sift through and curate and figure out the stickies that are most relevant to what you're looking for. Do not have the participants censor or filter what they're saying, because that they're going to self-censor a lot of useful information. So, so don't overload them with a ton of instructions. So what do we do after the workshop? So after the workshop, let's go back to the Miro. This is gonna make you a hero to your stakeholders. So now I have all these stickies, right? What I can do, and this is so much better with the digital version instead of like when I had to do this physically with real stickies, I can just, oh my God, I didn't lock that. Okay, I can, all right, that's not what I want to do, Miro. Oh my gosh, all right. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to select, yeah, okay. So I want to select all these stickies and then Command C. And so now, and you can use whatever method of prioritization you want. I'm just going to use the impact and effort matrix here. Bam. I sort them. Let's clean it up. Let's get rid of these two. Didn't mean to include those. So now I have these, and this is all in like feedback from the customer support team. And now I can sort them through by impact, by effort, and start prioritizing things. You can also do this with the Moscow methodology, other methodologies to prioritize, or maybe this doesn't make sense to you. Maybe you want to tackle everything in phases. What's the easiest thing we can do? What are some quick wins we can have in phase 1 and split it out that way? And guys, imagine coming to your product people with this. Like, what a great, like, this is weeks of work that have been compiled from 2 hours, right? So it's a really powerful workshop and methodology. Another thing I would do is I would start a group chat, not a channel, because nobody needs more channels in Slack and Teams, okay? Just make a quick group chat with all the participants and just start maintaining that relationship. What you can do is, again, you're not going to get to every sticky in there for open discussion, but you might be able to cherry pick them and say, hey, you can like pick out a sticky and then message the group chat like, hey, Raymond, I saw that you made this comment about the the password reset. What's up with this? I don't do DMs because I still want to create this community and relationship with the workshop group in that context. And also, Raymond might have one story. Well, someone else might have 3 examples of this, and maybe like even add a little bit more color to it, more context to it. And then finally, this group is now like, they've already been through a workshop with you. They already have FaceTime with you. They already kind of like are already getting to know like what UX is and what you're doing. Use them for design feedback, to conduct focus groups. Like now you can have like a ready group to ask anytime. And this actually squashed lots of design debates with my team. Be like, you know what? I'm just gonna ask my group. So in conclusion, this is such a powerful workshop. You will gain deeper insights in 2 hours. It's like I promise you, you're gonna be amazed at like the depth of knowledge, because again, these are deep, nuanced usability issues. You can also get a tangible readout of the current system and like the metrics. So again, let's go back into Miro one more time. So what you could, like, I don't know if you know this, but customer support, they measure everything. They measure every type of support ticket. They measure how many times they're closed, how much time was used to close or resolve a ticket. So here, let's say I pick out on one of these. Let's say this was like high in the priority list. Like this is pretty high impact. I can go back to the customer support manager, like, hey, in your system, can you grab me like just numbers from the past 6 months on how many people have called or emailed about this CSV export issue? So now you have a baseline. So now let's say the baseline is they get 4 calls a week about this issue. And if you can attach a dollar amount to it, like what does this mean for a company? You know, like, oh, this is four calls a week and they're losing thousands of dollars every time this happens. Imagine going to your stakeholders with these metrics. And now for your redesign, you have a baseline to measure against. Does your design reduce the number of customer support calls on the export, right? And anyways, my whole point is tap into CS as a resource. You will look like a genius. They are a wealth of knowledge. I know this from experience from both sides of the fence. And that's what I have. And so now we'll be able to open up for questions and all of that. Thank you.
Yay. Feel free to go off mute for a second. Give Havana a round of applause.
Amazing.
Okay. Thanks so much, Havana. That was awesome.
Thank you.
We had a lot of great questions in the chat, so I will field some of those.
Okay, cool.
So Ida, you had a lot of good questions. I think Havana kind of went over the timing one. So you were wondering about the 2 hours and then also how you follow up with participants. And then you also had a really good question on determining patterns. So I'll just hand it over to you, Ida, if you want to elaborate on any of these, dig in deeper.
Yeah, I think you did answer the first question. And it was more around just Zoom exhaustion, less that we're taking customer care people away from their job, but just 2 hours online can be kind of long for a lot of people. But you answered that. What was the second question?
I had a question about how you leave participants, like how do you follow up with them? Which Havana kind of touched on, but like, I guess what you were talking about, and also what I'm curious about is like, do you let them know like, hey, here's the change that came from your suggestion? Kind of take it full circle.
Let me just, sometimes you you come across customer care people and they're like, oh yeah, we've talked to people like you before and nothing ever happens. You know, like that kind of exhaustion.
Yeah.
So, you know, how do you take, I'm just curious how you message what you do with their feedback in, you know, either a committal way or a non-committal way.
I think I would first understand their history with that. So I actually have a situation where the customer support person has told me, oh, well, I'm glad you're here, but we've been complaining about the same issues for 3 years, but no one has really addressed these. So before I do anything, I would figure out, so how did you give this feedback? Like, what were you told about getting this feedback? What type of, like, was it developers? Was it product people? Was it an executive? Like, who were you telling this to? Like, kind of do a little bit of detective work and see what happened there. And then also you can, like, let's say that, well, we talked to the product people and I don't know where it goes. So then I'll go to the product people. Hey, I actually learned that customer service has been communicating with you guys. What do you guys do with that feedback? See, like, are they saving it? Are they not? And so that way you can see, like, if it was mishandled by some other department, I mean, you'll have to it's kind of on you to be the responsible one, right? So I'm not always perfect. Sometimes I get moved to another project, but to build that trust, you have to follow up. So I'll follow up and say, hey, here's like a low fidelity wireframe on one of the things that we are trying to fix based on your feedback. Or even if it's not a design deliverable, I'll be like, hey, just a heads up to the whole group so that you're not messaging like 10 people separately. Like, I have I've prioritized your feedback. We broke it out into phases. I'm discussing it with the product people now to fix it, and like try to move it along, but also be transparent about like these little milestones. And then sometimes I honestly kind of falter, not through my fault, but like if I get moved to another product and I can't follow through, I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm actually being moved off this project. But what I've done is I took all of the deliverables from our workshop and I'm handing it off to the next designer. I mean, it is kind of like also on you to be the responsible one. So I would recommend just like that constant communication. And I mean, not to brag, but there were a couple of sales and customer support people who said, Havana, you're the first person who has ever addressed anything I complained about. So that would be my answer to that.
I'm not surprised. Who here, like when you talk to customer service people, are you like, do your user experience designers talk to you? I'm always at, and they're like, no.
Yeah.
Like, oh, why are your user experience designers not talking to you? Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you, no one does it. So if you do it,
yeah.
Oh my God, people, like I did this and I felt like it was so simple because I've been in customer service, so I know what kind of information they have. And so my product owner, I've never seen this. This is amazing.
I mean, like just all of us should remember, like when we're on the other side of it, how much we wish that what we're saying is being translated to the UX designers by the customers. And if we're not, so as UX designers, if we're not asking the customers or if we're not being proactive about that, then a lot of times it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Kayla wants to know if we get access to your Miro template.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So I have a free Miro account. I'm trying to see how I can. I'm really trying to avoid paying for it. But let me see what I can do.
If you can even just take a screenshot of it, I can send out the screenshot because I think it'd be pretty easy to recreate.
Yeah, that's true. It's not that hard. So yeah, I can do that screenshot.
Cool. I will, yeah, remind you of that. Okay. And then Lauren, you had a question. Can you repeat your question?
Yeah. So this is like, first of all, this is amazing because I've always wanted to engage with customer client care, but I kind of didn't know how to go about it. It's, everybody always goes to like a spreadsheet. Hey, do you have a spreadsheet with like, who keeps, like, it's not very helpful, but it's just where everybody initially ends up, just if you don't have something wonderful like this set up, or I've gone to a talk where somebody shows you how to do this.
Thank you. I'm glad.
But so what I really like about this too, is that something I've noticed when I've talked to client care is you end up getting very specific things, or like maybe the last thing they thought of, or it's very like tunnel vision or very one-off, where this, I feel like, allows you to get a collective. Can you talk about how that works and how that's been beneficial to be able to kind of weed through the one-offs versus the truly to get the view of what actually is the problem?
Yeah, that's a great one. There's a couple of things. I didn't really have dot voting just because most of the time you're not going to have time to like do the dot voting. Again, their time is very precious and you're lucky to get 2 hours. But I would say like during the open discussion, you'll start kind of getting a sense for how important things are. Like if one person brings up an example but no one else says anything, then it's like, okay, maybe this doesn't happen that frequently. But if everyone chimes like, oh yeah, I hate that part, like, okay. Another thing you can do is the follow-up. So when you identify something that the customer support rep has brought up, you can ask the manager for those stats. So then that way you can get a numerical idea of how much. And also what I didn't think about is like, if there's already site analytics on the system, maybe you can like figure out a way to correlate that. So that would be a couple ways that I would tackle it.
Cool. Awesome. So we got a few more questions. Before I jump to those other questions, I just want to kind of bring this back to like when I was looking at it, how I would use this for noun foraging. So I don't know if when you were looking at it, I was actually looking at your Eventbrite board and I was saying, okay, well, what are, so I was doing that noun foraging. So I'm seeing drafts, attendees, tickets, which with Eventbrite is pretty clear, right? But let's say we're doing complex business software that you're completely new to, and you start hearing the terms that the customer service people are using, or even like different terms like drafts versus like a event in progress or something like that. Like, are those the same thing? Are those different things? You can start asking some follow-up questions about that. Like, again, like what are these things? Are these the same things? Are these different things? How would you define these things? How do you think a user thinks about this thing? So you can be kind of coming up with questions as you're seeing those nouns that you could be talking through with them. And then even things like looking at attributes too. So the CSV fields, they want to customize the CSV fields. That's going to help you with attribute prioritization to say, oh, wait, so these fields equals attributes, right? Though these fields are not showing up in the customization. These are the ones, what are the ones that they really want to be able to customize in the CSV export? Can we infer that those are probably really important fields when they're actually looking at that object? It's probably exporting. And what are they exporting? Are they exporting attendees on the event? Are they exporting event? Like, here's all my past events and I want to export data on those events. So what is being exported? What's the prioritization about? What fields are they looking for that they can't find? And like things like live needs to be more obvious. Okay, live would be a state of an event, right? So we can talk about, like, we might even ask the question, like, what does it mean to be a live event? Which maybe we've come to this workshop and we already know that. But again, coming back to complex business software, this is going to help trigger a lot of extra questions for you about your objects, about your attributes, what people want to do to those objects. So in case you hadn't connected the dots there, that's how I, when I'm taking this, it's not just the usability issues. I'm starting to extract further questions about the information architecture.
No, that's great. I love that.
Chad Hansen, question. Who decides what experience to break down in the workshop? You or customer support?
Me. Just because a lot of this is based on like the project that I'm assigned to, or what is coming down from product, I guess. It is kind of reactive. I guess you could make it more discoverable, but in the past, it's always been like, okay, you're on this project now. Here's the existing software. We want to redesign it. And like based on like, okay, when you say redesign, what is this phase? Like what do you mean? So then you get into the requirements. And once you get a good idea of what you're supposed to redesign, I just kind of hone in on that, because customer service is probably going to deal with like the whole thing, right? So you do need to like help funnel, like, okay, I think that's also why the screenshots help, because they can visually see what they're supposed to comment on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like both, right? I mean, you say like, okay, here's what's in our locus of control right now, but then it's going to be based on them saying like, okay, here's the spot we really need to hone in on, and we need to talk a lot about like this little area here, exactly. This little area there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Very cool. All right. Ida, you had another question that I really love. How do you identify issues outside of the application? The app screenshots are great for usability issues. Can you elaborate on that?
I do have an answer, and I was trying to find a flow for it, but go ahead, Ida. She might be.
You're on mute. You're muted.
She might be away.
She jumped away.
Sorry, my mouse got lost. More than one monitor. I guess the example I'm thinking of is like an application in my organization that I got some user feedback. I just happened to get user feedback, and they were like, "Your app doesn't connect with my business's QuickBooks," and we were like, "Oh," that was, you can't look at a screen in the app and say that's a problem. So how do you identify those issues? Maybe you just ask the group, like, are there any other issues that customers talk about that is not obvious? I don't know.
Mhm.
You've got some other ideas.
Yeah, so what I would do, because I've also done this, except this was a mix of customer support and sales. I realized like the whole, like not just the software, but like the whole experience for a customer onboarding. How do I talk about this without being obvious about what it is? It was like very, very, very expensive software. I'm talking millions of dollars. Okay, so the onboarding process, when you onboard the new customer, you basically had to go through like 4 other departments to get your hardware set up and your software set up. And then there was also, I later learned just from discovery interviews and stuff, that the invoicing was also a big pain in the butt. So I saw that it wasn't just an issue with the software, it was an issue elsewhere. And I guess I picked up on that from conversations. But what you can do to kind of like facilitate the workshop part of it is I started creating a user journey of the whole thing. And I split it up by like new customer. How does the new customer even get there? Starts with a sales call, right? So then I literally start on like day 1 of the sales call. And now what? And now what? And now what? And so then I started mapping like this whole user flow, and I walked the participants through it. And so like, hey, here's the flow on Miro. Go nuts with the stickies. Put down like stuff that I missed. Put down stuff in maybe red that are like major issues. And like, because people were submitting this like using a visual, I'm all about visuals. I hate resolving things just verbally. I have the visual so people can like plug in. What's amazing about this, Ida, is I realized I didn't even think about this, but I saw that there was a very, very major issue with the invoicing, where the invoices had like a 50% error rate, and they would always have to like, I had something about the integration with the invoicing. And so like, it was the salesperson who said like, I'm constantly having to go out and rescue accounts because our invoicing is so bad, it doesn't get the information correctly from the software to make an accurate invoice, and people get mischarged, incorrectly charged all the time, and we have lost major Fortune 500 companies because of this. Like, whoa, okay. So then now I had a metric. I had very specific accounts that were lost specifically from the invoicing part. I saw that there was a problem with the integration with the software and the invoicing. And so what I did was I actually brought this to the stakeholders. Like, we are solving the wrong problem. We're solving this interface, but actually you're bleeding money from this integration. And so, and also the great thing about having that visual is they see where the break is. And I actually was able to show the amount of dollars. This is the same person who was saying, Havana, you're the first one in all the years I've been here that ever did anything with this complaint. I brought this up several times. And it wasn't until I was able to show the visual and show the metrics and show specific accounts that got lost, including, and I can't be too specific, including one that like kind of messed up, it caused an issue with President Obama. Like that was the scale of how massive this problem was. And so then the stakeholders actually gave me permission. Oh shit, okay, we need to pivot. So that's one way you could do that without being so hyper-focused on the interface.
That's so good. Like just to have your screenshots and then underneath show a high level journey map and say, do you have a problem that doesn't fit in one of these screens? Like look at the journey map, like what could go here too? Right. It's just like another way that they could visualize the problems and place the problems somewhere.
Exactly. And so like with that problem, it was, now that is it's a little outside the scope of what I'm talking about here, because that feedback came from sales. So like the type of feedback you'll get from sales is very different, because well, sometimes customer service does this, but like when the account is close to termination, it's either sales or the customer service that has to rescue them. I used to have to rescue accounts all the time. It sucked. You are like basically absorbing the customer's frustrations. And I think it was really valuable to get that feedback from sales. But no other UX person was chasing that. So that's why I'm telling you, you look like a genius when you do this.
I mean, this whole workshop could be run with sales too.
Yes.
Like what screens do you sell? Like on your, sitting in on sales calls is great to see like, how do they actually sell this? Like when they're doing demos, like what are they focusing on?
Oh
like,
man.
What are they like? We don't show that screen during sales calls.
Yes. So, your girl used to also work in sales. So like sales is also a wealth of knowledge, because they know why customers don't buy. They know the competitors and what customers prefer from competitors, and they know why accounts get terminated. So
yeah. I mean, the exact template could be used. I mean, really, the simple magic of this is like give people visuals and give people and time box it and do the right prep work, and then get them to put their problems in there.
One more thing I want to say: the reason why I hate just verbalizing the insights is because, number one, you have the hippo problem. Number two, there's always going to be such a fraction of people who are not going to participate at all. They're going to be doing this, checking their email while they're on the call. And so they like, also, once you do talk about a problem, let's say you talk about the CSV export thing, but then they keep talking about it, and they keep talking about it, and they keep talking about it. And so now 20 minutes have passed, and actually it's not that big a problem at all. It's like an issue twice a year, but now you spend 20 minutes on it. You didn't get any other information. So that's why the stickies are important, because like even if people do take up time talking about one issue, okay, well, we're out of time, but I still have all the stickies that were captured. So.
Yeah. And then you can also help people visualize all the other stuff that you need to get through. Like, this is great. I would love to come back to this. If we have, my favorite thing to do in user interviews, and this could work with that too, is say like, let's come back to this if we have time later, but let's move on. And then you just never come back to it.
Because there's never time.
Because there's not going to be time.
Parking lot, yes.
Awesome. All right. We're about 10 minutes over. This was awesome. Thank you so much, Havana. I hope you all try this out. Share what you can with us. If you have your slides, you can share with us a screenshot. I'm sure everybody would eat that up, and I will send that out. And I'll send that out to all the participants.
Sweet. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Havana. Y'all have a great rest of your night. Bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.